Welcome to episode 2 of Homework Hell. Homework Hell. It's Homework Hell again. Oh my gosh, it's Homework Hell. Everyone's excited. Here we are, folks. All right, so where we left off, let's not delve into the specifics. It was The
Yeah.
Alchemist with Paolo Coelho.
Yep.
So, what do you want to talk about on this next episode there?
So, I have found a concept that I find pretty irritating, and generally a lot of parts of this book that I'm not a fan of. And they introduce a new character who's the archetypical or archetypal or whatever, old wise man. Except given that it's written by someone who clearly has no concept of such, it does not come across that way.
Okay. So you're saying this person isn't wise that wrote the book.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what's the deal? Here's what I don't understand. So the old gypsy was kind of like the old sage person. So who is this person? Like, what's the role of the old man?
Well, actually, if you remember the lore, the old gypsy proclaimed herself not wise. She just knew a bunch of parlor tricks,
Right, right.
as usual.
Yeah. Your autism shines through. But so what's the role of this guy?
This guy is a living plot device, and thus he fits in perfectly with the rest of the book,
Okay.
as he shows up out of nowhere with no context, with godlike powers, and talks to the kid, and reveals a concept I hate, known as personal legends.
Okay, so this is the personal legend stuff coming in. Now, the thing is, it seems like archetypes, right. I mean, this is a book of archetypes, a book of symbols, a book of that's what it seems like. It doesn't seem like an actual story. Hold on, Oz. Before we continue, I'm gonna have some chicharrones. Give me 1 second. Hey,
Yeah?
look, I'm just hungry. I haven't eaten since lunch,
Oh,
so I
yeah,
just
of
want to
course.
have a bag of
Oh yeah, no one's
chicharrones.
blaming you.
And I'm just gonna finish my bag of chicharrones. Okay.
Yeah.
Because people were telling me they didn't like the ice.
Yeah, people were not a fan of that, which I thought was kind of unfair, because the man needs his ice. Who are you to say no?
And let me tell you something. One thing that I know is not ice, chicharrones.
I mean, yeah, that's the closest thing to not ice we have.
So let me have about 20 more chicharrones.
Yeah.
Just 20 more,
Why
and
just
then
20? We can bring in more. We got more chicharrones.
yeah. Do you mind running to the store and getting?
Yeah,
us a
give me
bag
1
of-
sec. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's finish this first, though.
Okay.
So, basically, the kid's sitting on the bench, reading his own book, and the old man walks up to the bench, and he's like, hey, can I see the book? And the kid gives him the cold shoulder the entire time, because of self-evident reasons, I'm assuming.
Okay. Hold on. I don't remember a book. There's a book in the book.
Oh yeah, the kid. So the shepherd pays. Well, he purchases books with the money he gets from shepherding.
Right, and he traded a book for a bigger book, right? I vaguely
Yeah.
remember that. Okay, great.
And so this is the book in question.
Yuck. All right, tell me all about the book.
We don't know
stuff.
anything about the book, but and then they do start describing a little bit about it, and then the old man reveals himself to be basically kind of God in a way. Like
Okay.
he knows everything about this kid, and he knows everything ever, and he's referred to as the King of Salence, which is some place.
Wait, it's a capital? It's not like salience or something? Like a
No,
word?
it said Salence.
Here, can I see it?
I'll if I can find it.
Yeah, let's find this thing. I want to see what they're trying to get at with this. Never
Yeah.
heard of this. First, I'm gonna have a bunch more chicharrones.
Yeah, that's a smart idea.
No, I'm not. I'm kidding. Let me see I just want to see the name of this because it's just such an odd name. I kind of want to figure out, what's the story there with that.
Yeah, I'm the king of Salem. The old man had
Oh,
said.
Salem, I've heard of.
I was saying it wrong.
Salem,
Never
Alabama, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, we'll have to look into that and see what that's. You know what? Hold on. We got the friggin' internet. Let's figure out what that could be real quick.
Typical millennials. Come on.
All right.
this in a
I'm sitting here,
library.
I don't know. Salence. All right, no.
Oh, and while you're doing that, I'll have myself some chicharrones.
Have a buttload of chicharrones. Look, you don't even like chicharrones.
No, I am not. I refuse.
Now, there's the Salem witch trials, but I don't think it has to do with any
More
of
like
that.
the Salem viewer
Salem,
trials.
Oregon, Salem. I'm going to do this. Salem Bible. Genesis. I don't remember that.
Huh.
Give me 1 second. We're going to figure out what he might be getting at.
Yeah, we're getting to the bottom of this.
Ah, here we go. Look at this. See, you start looking and you find things. So Salem is an ancient Middle Eastern town mentioned in the Bible. Okay, here we go. Here's the passages, y'all. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God.
So it's
That's
probably
Genesis.
referring to him then, because he's a king of Salem, and although that's about as far as it goes from what I've seen, it could be like, oh, the bread and wine is knowledge.
Yeah,
Because it just
right.
gives them knowledge.
Well, in bread and wine, that's the whole Jesus thing. So it kind of links the Old and New Testament there. Hold on one second. I'm going to look up this Melchizedek. And then there's Shalem. They're probably the same place, and one's like the Hebrew version, and one's like the
Oh yeah, probably
later English bastardization. Melchizedek, you ready to hear about the king of Salem? The biblical king of Salem? Jewish.
King of righteousness.
No, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Mentioned in the 14th chapter of the book of Genesis.
Oh, he blesses Abram. Wasn't Abram a guy who was important to some extent?
Well, Abraham was important. Is this the same? Why they got to spell things? Yeah. Oh, that's Abraham. Yeah, he was like the beginning of the priest class and all that. Okay, hold on.
Huh.
As a nickname title for Shem, the son of Noah. That's Melchizedek. In Christianity, according to the Epistle to the Hebrews, Jesus Christ is identified as high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Holy crap. Okay, so yeah, this is some like biblical mumbo jumbo. It's an informal insertion into the narration, possibly inserted in order to give validity to the priesthood and tithes connected with the Second Temple. His name indicates he may have worshipped Zedek, a Canaanite deity worshipped in pre-Israelite Jerusalem. See, here's an interesting little rabbit hole to go down. Of course, we're not going to do this right now.
Yes.
So tell me about this.
So this guy, as I say, sits down, and the boy's like, this dude probably can't even read. And then the dude's like, yo, I know the title of that book, and what's it about? And he's like, what? And so it's revealed that this dude can read, and does in fact have magical powers.
Okay.
Which he uses to frighten the boy by basically showing that he knows his parents and what he used to be. And the boy's like creeped out and like, what the hell's going on right now?
Can I just point something out?
Yeah.
If God really did come down, he'd creep people out.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh, how do you know what color underwear I'm wearing? You know, it wouldn't be like a thing of like, oh, God's so cool. It would be like, oh, this guy's a super creep.
Yeah, it's like if they took God but didn't address the fact he's God, really, the powers just show up and he doesn't affect much else.
He's just a creepy old man.
So
tell me about the guy. Like, what does the guy do?
So the guy introduces a few concepts that are core to the book, as I understand. And he introduces the worst concept in the book so far, which are these things called personal legends, and they are capitalized in the same way you capitalize God. Now, this is an idea. One, the phrase isn't that good. It's not fun to say. It's how you say it doesn't like imply any meaning. It's just two words put together.
Yeah, I know you say that. I think it's a total explanation for narcissism. Narcissists believe that they're like the main character in a movie or something.
Yeah, like saying like it's a legend that belongs to you specifically.
Right. So yeah, but let's go on with this concept.
So basically, this concept is that when you are a baby or child, you really want to do something. And that thing you want to do, that thing you want to be, is exactly what you will only be happy doing, and if you do anything else, you won't be. And as you grow older, it's more clouded, and it's harder to figure out specifically what you want to do. And if you never follow your personal legend, you'll die unhappy.
Okay, well, this is a problem for me, because my dream as a child was to marry 5 beautiful women and just have wealth that came from nowhere. And so far, it hasn't happened, and I don't see it happening, and I don't know how to get there. I wasn't one of these kids who are like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. No, I just want to be rich. I don't want there to be a reason for it. Just give me the shit.
Yeah. As a kid, I wanted to like drive trains and stuff, and it's like if I did that, I would not be a happy man. I don't know shit about trains, and I don't want to know anything about trains.
Well, and it's the most boring thing. What do you do when you drive a train? It's like, okay, here's your controls. Go, stop,
Yeah,
go faster. If that, like maybe you don't even have that option
yeah, and
anymore.
stopping is usually a lost cause most of the time. That's what all the teachers tell you is that if you're on a railroad track, they can't stop soon enough. So really, it's just go forward and occasionally hit children.
Yeah, you're just on the train, babysitting the train, doing its own thing. Like you really have almost nothing to do with it. And
Yeah,
if you think there's going to be AI trucks, there's not going to be a single human on these fucking trains.
and I like the concept of if a concept isn't explained to you as a child, you can never enjoy doing it. So let's say as a child you fuck it didn't know bacon existed. And let's say you're so you never hear about this, so you can never be happy baking because as a child you never wanted to bake. And listen, I know he's not going for this specific thing. He's not meaning like, oh, you can't enjoy these other things, but it's just written so clumsily that it invites this question immediately.
Right, and it's a terrible idea. Like when I was a kid, I thought cooking was like for girls. I thought it was so lame and so stupid. But then when I actually started having to learn to cook stuff and stuff like that, it was really fun. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
doing it. So, yeah, I had not a clue. I just don't buy this. I
yeah.
think there is some amount of self-knowledge when you're a kid, but you just don't know what's out there yet. You have to try
Honestly,
things.
I hate this idea that children are the wisest beings alive because no, children are stupid. Children are generally not exactly who you should go to for life-changing wisdom because they don't know much yet, and that's fine. I don't hate children. That would be hypocritical because I was one.
Yeah, and you're still sort of one. You're in those teen years, you know?
I'm a children 2.0.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You're
But
you're like the
I hate this worship of children as a concept because it's just really stupid. It has no basis in reality.
No, you know what it reminds me of? It's like the worship of nature. So there's this documentary called Grizzly Man about this guy who's obsessed with these grizzly bears, and at some point, he gets mauled to death by
I
this.
heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the documentary is filmed by this German guy who's just brutal, and at some point he goes, and Treadwell thought that nature was like a American Disney movie, but it was death all around him, and he refused to accept reality.
I like to imagine he's like some covert operative, just like having to do this to find a job in a foreign country.
Yeah, and I like to imagine him just furiously masturbating as he says this, but it's like, the thing is, but that's true. There's truth to it. Like we apply these irrational sort of idealizations to like nature
Yeah.
and to
Oh,
kids.
especially like with nature, you could look at any Disney movies that sort of ingrained in you. Like all the movies that make you think like animal control are the bad guys. It's
Right.
like, oh gosh darn it, you just stole another dog with rabies out the streets. What are my children going? How are they going to interact with nature now?
Well, right, like Bambi, you're supposed to be mad that the hunter killed Bambi, but you don't see the enormous deer ticks that are killing off Bambi, or like the other diseases, or
I
the
would
other
like to see
animals
Bambi
eating Bambi.
redone, but they're all just ticks and like
Oh God, I want to
just
see
gross
Bambi
out.
just mauled viciously in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll notice none of those movies does a natural thing harm another natural thing in any
right?
circumstance.
No, exactly. And the thing is, like, so something that happens in nature is like children of deer, what fawns. Like if they get injured, the parents just cold leave their ass
Well,
because
yeah,
they
because
cannot
what are they
afford.
going to do? Like, it's just
Right.
the
They
kind of
can't put
reality.
everyone else at risk. So that would make a hilarious Disney movie as well.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, and I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing. Like, do you
No.
really want to hit kids with the brutality of the world that
Yeah.
early? But at some point, you got to wake the fuck up and realize this isn't a Disney movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that this book that's meant to basically be Bible 2 Electric Boogaloo, if it is on the philosophical level of a Disney movie, that kind of brings across some problems.
Well, right. But the other thing, I don't want to call this Bible too because there's a million of these books that, like,
Yeah.
basically try to get some heat off the Bible's shine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, the thing I actually want to talk about something real quick. So this book is one of these world books. So we talked about this last time that like yuppies around the world or like bougie types around the world sort of cling to these things because it makes them feel more connected to like other
Yeah.
cultures and stuff. But meanwhile, it's very innocuous. There is a writer that you don't hear a lot about who hasn't sold a million books. His name's Galliano, and I want to say his first name's Eduardo, but he wrote this book called Patas Arriba, which It's kind of it means feet in the air, and
Hmm.
it's a saying in Spanish, but it means like dead basically, right?
Oh, that makes sense.
Or sort of upside down, like things are. It's like the bizarro world, you know.
Yeah.
And so the whole book is about Latin America, and it is the unvarnished, like sort of truth about Latin America. So he talks about the factories, he talks about the businesses, he talks about the endless wars and the CIA. He talks about how Latin America is mostly poor
Yeah.
and mostly abjectly broke, and how the government will secretly kill off people and the CIA will secretly kill off people and all this stuff. And it's just brutally honest. Now, it's still poetic and literary, but it doesn't have this kind of personal destiny BS.
And
So,
you know it's bad when you've got a whole other world secret organization killing your own citizens.
well, right, right. And, you know, another book I've contrasted with this is 100 Years of Solitude. I can't wait till you read that. To me, that's a wonderful book, and it addresses all those things as well while still being somewhat sort of fun and magical and otherworldly. But anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
So basically, this starts to bring the idea of personal legend starts to bring some questions in about how the hell this relates to the actual plot of the character. Because the way it's described, this character, so a personal legend in this book has to be something you want to do since you're like when you're young, and it's something you'll be happy doing. And what meets that criteria exactly is traveling for this kid. Because ever since he was a little child, he was in a rich family and he was going to be like a priest. But he decided instead he wanted to travel in the least like heartfelt scene that's meant to be I've ever read. And then boom, he's fulfilling his personal legend now because he's doing what makes him happy. But no, his personal legend is not that. His personal legend is to fulfill the dream and find a treasure which he didn't know about when he was young. He knew about it just a little bit ago.
Right. And too many aphorisms in a book, and you're going to have these contradictions because you're just trying to oversimplify everything. Actually, I want to talk about travel real quick because travel is a kind of bougie phenomenon. It's
Yeah,
not something most people can do, including most Americans, as far as like traveling outside the country. And I got to tell you this story of when I traveled to Brazil. So,
yeah,
toward the end of living in Brazil, your mom got pregnant with you, and so we were gonna get toys and stuff like that. Oh, we're gonna get Brazilian toys, and so we
yeah.
did that. Well, when we're at the mall, you notice that the toys are very expensive compared to the local economy.
Oh, yeah.
So the only people you saw in there were tourists and rich natives, and
Yeah, and that's why
so
they do it. It makes money off the tourists.
right, but you realize this horrible thing of like every child I had seen while we lived there was begging for change or performing for change or robbing people for change. And like, I didn't see kids playing with toys. I didn't see kids having fun. And the only people I saw buying toys for kids were these upper middle class or these middle class parents. And so you realize this stark realization, you see it right in front of you, that like this whole industry and this whole thing that exists that I view as fundamental to my life is not available
Yeah,
to a majority of
if
the
you're
world.
one of those kids and your personal legend is to travel, well, you're kind of fucked. And this comes in later, and I do want to talk about the story about sacrificing to fulfill your personal legend. So let me tell the story real quick. So this is what the old man does after he just exposits all this information. He tells the boy, so this dude basically he fulfills people's personal legends, sort of. He kind of helps, but how does that explain? It's the same thing with God. How does that explain people who don't get their legends fulfilled? Does he not care?
Right.
But then here, he talks about this little story about a miner. So give me one moment to find this.
Yeah, let me know when you found that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is the thing: is religion was inherently tribalism in the past, and I think this is one reason religion doesn't really fly today as much. Because with the internet and like the breakdown of old tribal forms and stuff like that, you have to answer this question of, well, what does God do about those people that don't believe, or those
Yeah,
people that are different, or they never knew about him? You never had to answer that before because the answer was understood to be, well, he's just on our side. He doesn't
yeah.
give a crap.
All right, so I found it, and so it talks about this miner. who basically abandoned everything in his life, all measures of success, his family, friends, everything, because he wanted to find emeralds and be rich. Besides the fact that his personal legend is money and richness, which not everyone can get, especially, and is not even admirable or really healthy of a goal because being rich isn't like it isn't sort of it isn't a constant. If you're like an artist, you have that skill with you at all times. But if you get money, you only have money because you have money. If you lose the money, you're not rich anymore. But besides that, so this guy throws away everything in his life, and he goes around looking for emeralds, and he does this for 5 years. And just when he's about to give up on the last stone, this old man takes the shape of the stone, which gets picked, and he gets the emerald, and now he's a rich man.
Okay, and yeah, let's talk about that real quick because wealth is weird like that, right? Wealth does buy things. I'm not one of these people that thinks wealth is utterly irrelevant. It buys safety, and it buys security, and it buys some measure of happiness. But as an end goal, it's absolutely nothing. I've known plenty of people who are wealth obsessed, and no matter how much they have, they'll never be happy. And they end up with a lot more than other people because they're obsessed with it. But so what?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I lived with these people that were very, very wealthy. They had
Yeah.
a multi-million-dollar ranch and millions of dollars and owned all these businesses and stuff. And a lot of these people were miserable, ignorant, backward, just totally misfocused.
Yeah.
And it just seemed there's a certain sadness that comes with it if it's not even wealth you accumulated. So one way I look at it is if wealth is a byproduct of some kind of ambition or talent or
Yeah.
skill or something you've built, then I can see the full enjoyment of that, or even in some almost pseudo spiritual way, even though I
Yeah, because it just
hesitate to say
supplements
it.
the enjoyment you already get from achieving and making something.
Right, but even worse than that is the children of the wealthy. So, like, the children of these people basically are playing the game of life on God mode. So, even as little kids, they don't have to think about the price of things. They don't have to think about saving
Yeah.
things. Money doesn't really exist, and there is a certain deadness to them that I felt at least.
Yeah,
So,
it
anyway,
comes across like this guy has not experienced enough life to be given this kind of advice.
well, I just think he grew up rich, and so he just doesn't see the context. And
That's
I
true.
just think most rich people are like that. And again, there's such a even for my little lower middle class crappy life, there's a part of me that's just like, well, on some level, I must deserve it. I just can't handle the truth that I won this sort of lottery. Like I just because I
Yeah.
want to be able to bitch and complain.
Yeah.
For me, that's what the drive is, right?
Yeah.
That's what my talent is. But for this guy, I think like most upper middle class people or comfortably middle class people, you just don't ever have to think about it. You can view your life as some movie character because the stakes aren't the same.
Yeah. And it's just this guy definitely comes across as not being in any position really to be like appealing to people's sense for enlightenment. It just because a good portion of this I've seen is just all platitudes. Not a whole lot of it is saying something, and stuff that is saying something tends to be redundant, and the second you start questioning it, it all falls apart.
Well, and these are the type of people that get a lot of mileage at like these charity events for the super rich. You know, they go around and tell stories of travel and they tell these sort of like happy, sort of pseudo religious stories, but there's no real religion among the elites or whatever these days. And so this sort of fills that gap and it makes
Oh
them
yeah,
feel these
totally.
warm fuzzies like, oh, I must be meeting my personal
Yeah, it gives
legend.
that sort of a face value aspect of religion without any of the responsibility or like boundaries or any sort of anything like that. Now, real quick, one thing I find a line I find interesting is that the old man then refers that he is a member of the Warriors of Light, and that's one of their tenets is that like life has sacrifices, which is a stupid name. And then something just ridiculously inane is this old man who's basically a godlike figure, can transform into anything, give people anything. Asks like literally requires the boy to give him a tenth of his sheep, uh, and he'll tell him how to find the treasure.
Yeah.
Why? If you're trying to teach him life as sacrifice, then you've already taught him that and explained it to him, and you've told him an entire campfire story about that being the case. And now it's like, you know what? I don't think you got it. I'm just gonna take like a tenth of your livelihood.
Right. So there's two parts of this. One, that sort of tithing is a very old religious practice. Two, and this is something I find really hilarious. When I was a kid, there were these televangelists, these TV preachers, and they would constantly refer back to these parts of the Bible that were about, well, give up money to the church, right? Which in this
Yeah,
case was these stupid televangelists, and you'll get 200-fold. And then they'd have these fake stories of people who had just lost their job and they gave their last money to this TV preacher and they made back, hundreds of thousands. Well, the funny thing about that is a lot of these preachers ended up arrested in prison and all this. And
yeah.
this is the same kind of hucksterism, but it's aimed at a more sophisticated crowd, I think.
Basically, yeah. But God, it is. Oh, and also, it does say that basically anyone who's a baker is not living their best life, which I just find entertaining. See, they make this connection between shepherds and bakers, and shepherds are more free and get to travel, but they're lower class members of society, where bakers are higher up, but they don't get to travel, so then they're not fulfilling their dream, even though, what if you want to bake and you don't want to travel?
Right, and baking sounds friggin' awesome. If I was like good enough at organization, I would totally bake. And I like getting up early now that I'm old. Let me
Yeah.
just comment on that because I think the author there is doing a Cain versus Abel thing. Where like one thing is agricultural and one thing is nomadic. And I think the Bible, in Genesis is sort of talking about that too. There's another book that deals with that called Ishmael.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say Daniel Quinn is the author, but I don't recall. But and it's about how Cain represented, I want to say agriculture, and Abel represented nomadism, and it was a symbolic thing. They weren't actual people.
Huh.
And Cain killing Abel was humanity becoming agricultural and forming cities. And so
It's
maybe
really
that's what the book's
interesting.
referring to. Now this hasn't been resolved, and so we don't know why that would be set up that way.
That's true, and to add on to that, it kind of falls apart a little bit because its point is that like parents would rather see their children marry a baker rather than a shepherd, but there are nomadic jobs that like merchants are incredibly wealthy and that job can be definitely nomadic, and then there are like sedentary jobs that give you nothing like low level farming. If you're just like some random peasant, you're not more like parents don't want to see their kid marrying a peasant in that time.
Right, yeah, and I understand all that. But again, I think this plays into this sort of bougie thing of, oh, well, you have to travel. Not all those who wander are lost. And I do think in life you should experience other things and you
Oh yeah.
should see parts of the world. But I don't know. I just don't get the idea from this book that he's doing this with his eyes open. This just, again, it seems to be biblical parables that kind of justify a bougie lifestyle of trying different wines or coffees in Brazil and then thinking you've seen something or learned something
Yeah.
when really you're the same piece of shit that you were when you left.
Yeah. But and also there was something. This is just part of the. This is a bit of the dialogue I want to read out because I found it pretty funny. So the old man saw it and said, "Well, he thought about that." The old man said, "But bakers are more important people than shepherds. Bakers have homes, while shepherds sleep out in the open. Parents would rather see their children marry bakers than shepherds." The boy felt a pang in his heart, thinking about the merchant's daughter. There's surely a baker in her town. Why is he sad that someone is baking? Why? It's this making this
He's an
connection.
incel.
Yeah,
He's a damn incel, the kid. What's he called? The boy or something?
yeah,
Did they
the
even name
boy.
the guy?
They didn't. They did, but he's such a non-character. I don't remember.
He's MGTOW.
Yeah, but yeah,
That's
it's
hilarious.
ridiculous to think that the boy was sad because he knew there's someone who chose to bake in that town. That means they're lost. I want to imagine someone like people going door to door with this book, to like a baker's house and being like, "We're going to pray for you, maybe one day," and it's just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
But again, I think this is like they're saying like, oh well, this is what the world loves. This is what the world likes. But again, the problem that I have with this is you can say that, but the goal of your book is to find treasure. So
Yeah.
it's like, but that's worldly as hell. Now, of course, I think the twist is going to be, oh, now he's discovered himself, and that was the real treasure the whole time. Puke. But so I do think that'll be the end. Let's do like one more point and then wrap this
All
one
right,
up.
yeah, there's one that I really want to read out, but I can just explain. Basically, I have no clue why it's included. The way it's written totally feels sort of at odds with other parts of the book. But basically, it talks about how it's a small section talks like why the boy likes to travel, and he says that basically, if you stay in one place for a while, the friends you meet there start becoming a part of your life. And so you think, all right. And then once someone's a part of your life, they'll try to change you. And if you don't get changed, they'll get angry. What? So friends as a concept only work if you meet them like 3 times and leave?
Right, and this is classic avoidant behavior to like not get close to people and just like run away when you start feeling close to someone. And again, this is a very narcissist move. Narcissists like to control every social interaction and like so other humans don't work well for them. I can think of a couple examples in my life of people who just are absolutely narcissistic and they cannot stand to have close friends because at some point they're not able to manipulate them anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that a good end point for this time?
Yeah.
We've been going for a bit. Okay. Well, that wraps up episode 2. If
Yeah.
you can't tell, we're still not really liking it, but I'm going to take a crack at the book too. I do see some biblical stuff going on, but I also see a lot of confusion.
Oh, that's all you're going to see when you try reading it. Listen, we're coming at it from different points because I've had to suffer through it, and you've just been enjoying you're like the bourgeoisie in this case. I'm the suffering third world person, and you're just coming in like, oh, look at their plight, and then leaving.
I'm just taking advantage of your labor.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here enjoying
Come back
your
again
hate.
for another episode of children's labor being exploited.
No, wait a minute. You can't even joke about that.
Oh yeah,
They're going to kick me out.
This is not a crime. We are not criminals.
Hold on. For the record, do you enjoy doing the podcast or no?
Hang on, let me find the script. Yes.
Okay, look, seriously.
Yes, I enjoy it. I'm not being held.
I have to defend myself. We were doing this before there was a podcast, okay? We're just doing it in front of microphones now. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, let's leave it. Nice way to end it off with possible legal ramifications.
Right. I love just leaving it up in the air, just hoping these horrible, like, international corporate conglomerates don't decide to, like, put their boot down on our face. But
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
Take care.